And we've got some great sponsors as well. So I want to start by thanking Progress, of course, for helping both develop NativeScript and help us put on this event today, and NStudio. It's NStudio here in the audience. NStudio, guys, for being another big sponsor here. Appreciate you guys sponsoring and being at the event today. Well, that was easy. So we've got a great number of announcements and some information to share, but I want to start by giving you some project updates on NativeScript itself. So as a reminder, the journey for NativeScript started about 4 years ago, back in 2013, when we started to recognize that we needed a better way to help people who have skills of the web to build high-quality apps for mobile. We were doing a lot with hybrid, we were doing a lot with mobile app dev, but we knew there needed a better way to help people who knew JavaScript, CSS, and markup build high-quality native apps. And so that's where we started in 2013 with engineering prototypes, began proving out the technology in 2014, 2015. Then last year, as we talked about the first NativeScript Developer Day, we really started to ramp up adoption about a year ago. And I'm pleased to share today that since last year, that adoption trend has continued to take off. And since last year, through August, NativeScript NPM downloads are up 930%, which is a big number. So that's a good number. So thank you for downloading, and thank you for being part of that NativeScript community growth. In fact, over the summer, we, through the NativeScript CLI, over 750,000 CLI commands were issued just over the summer months of 2017. There are now over 11,000 stars for the NativeScript GitHub project, so it's becoming a thriving, growing, open source project, and you all are a key part of that, so again, thank you for that. Been over 1,800 pull requests merged into the project, 3,000 issues. You've helped us find and fix things in NativeScript, 90% of which have already been addressed, so we're really happy about that. And the community is a big part of this. Community is what helps a project like NativeScript grow and become what it is. And there are now over 4,200 members in the Slack channel for NativeScript. I'm sure many of you are there as well. And over 1,000 unique people answering questions on the new NativeScript forums. You are helping each other make NativeScript better and helping each other get started and make NativeScript what it is. So again, community is very important to us, and we thank you for being part of it. It's also global. So this is not just here in North America. This community for NativeScript is growing all over the place. Development is very active in many different parts of the world. As a matter of fact, if you're going to be in Europe, the NativeScript Developer Day EU is actually happening, I think, in about a week, a little bit later this month. So if you want to do this all over again and do it in Europe, head on over, and you can do this there with the NativeScript community thriving in Europe. And of course, a lot of big companies, some of the biggest companies in the world today, are increasingly betting on NativeScript and using NativeScript in their internal development. And we're really pleased to see this roster of companies growing and seeing the neat things that they are doing with NativeScript in their companies. In fact, we'll have SAP up here in just a minute to talk a little bit about what SAP is doing with NativeScript in their environment. But first, let me give you a few updates on NativeScript 3. We shipped NativeScript 3 earlier this year, and it was a big milestone for the project. A lot of improvements and a lot of key areas to help make NativeScript better. Two of the areas where we focused a lot of attention were developer experience and performance. And when it comes to developer experience, part of what makes using NativeScript familiar for a web developer is this, the Chrome DevTools. We want to bring to you, as you work with NativeScript, that familiar environment you have when you build and debug apps for the web. So we've been working for a while now to make all of the things you can do with Chrome DevTools for a web app work for NativeScript. So today you can use the Sources tab, of course, to browse the source, the JavaScript source for your app, set debug points, debug your app through the Chrome DevTools. You can use the Memory tab to grab memory snapshots, do profiling of your application, make the performance even better. The Network tab, of course, see all the network traffic in and out of your NativeScript app. And this one was the one we were really looking to get to, and I hope that you will enjoy as much as we do, the Elements tab. These are not HTML tags. These are actual NativeScript markup tags you can see in there, the grid layout, the stack layout, which you can now browse interactively and use to debug the visual layout of your app. Works for Android today. iOS will be supported in the very next NativeScript release 3.3, and I think this is a huge improvement to the overall developer experience. The other place we've been focusing is performance. Performance is key. Your app, if it's going to have that high-quality experience, needs to be fast both when it loads and when it runs. And so we spent a lot of time optimizing and improving NativeScript performance, beginning with the NativeScript 3 release. In fact, if you've not checked it out, Webpack plus Android is definitely the new hotness for performance across the board, but especially in Android. And when you work with these things together, you can experience load times that are 50% faster in some cases in your applications. In fact, TJ Van Tol, who you'll see here in a minute to do a demo, put together this image, which shows you the before and after of using NativeScript 3 with the optimizations and what you would deal with before the optimizations here on the left. In fact, we're going to loop this over and over again just so you can see how fast it loads up. 3 seconds versus 9 seconds, huge time savings when you use Webpack and optimize for Android. Now, as we do this, we want to make sure NativeScript stays high quality. You want to make sure your upgrades through the versions of NativeScript are consistent and smooth. You don't want trouble. And so to do that, we have a huge amount of testing we do every time we make a commit to the NativeScript project. Over 2,400 tests today, unit tests run when we make these commits, 430 UI tests. So a big testing suite, all kinds of devices on which we run these tests, both simulators, emulators, as well as physical devices. So as we evolve and we upgrade NativeScript, as we merge your pull requests, we're running all these tests against all these versions of Android, API levels 17 through 26 now, both physical devices and emulators, as well as iOS 9, 10, and obviously now 11 as well. This is how we can make sure you have a high-quality NativeScript release every time we make an update. It also allows us to continue to do what we aim to do from the very beginning, deliver to you same-day support for the newest APIs inside of iOS and Android. And I'm pleased to say that we're doing that again with iOS 11 and Android Oreo. Immediately, you can begin tapping into the full power of what native apps can access inside of the latest iOS and Android releases. Now, there are a lot of APIs in there, and we'll increasingly create modules that provide a cross-platform abstraction so you can access those APIs easily. But one I'm really excited about, and I hope you are too, is ARKit and ARCore. And I'm pleased to say that we've already got a NativeScript plugin in development that allows you to easily integrate augmented reality experiences directly into your NativeScript apps. You can see it here, just like you'd expect in a native app. Integrate it into your app, detect a plane, and begin dropping objects into your scene. What makes this especially cool is that as we are able to add support for Android, you will be able to take advantage of that NativeScript promise of writing once and running everywhere. You can write one set of JavaScript against ARKit and ARCore, and it will run on both iOS and Android. So pretty cool stuff happening there. Last year, we also talked a lot about Angular. Angular is very important for NativeScript. It's part of how NativeScript has grown, and it's a key framework for our technology. When we talk about coming from the web and bringing the skills you have, it's not just JavaScript, it's the frameworks and the libraries that you use as well to be productive. So this is a very important part of how we go about building NativeScript. And we're pleased that over the last year, we've been able to keep pace with Angular and deliver the updates that you need so you can keep using the latest version of Angular as it ships. I think Angular is on version like 256 now, if I'm keeping up with its release track, but it ships very fast, we ship very fast, so you can keep using Angular without any interruption. But NativeScript isn't called Angular Native for a reason. NativeScript is about bringing in all the libraries and all the frameworks that you find useful, and the community has provided a lot of good feedback and has started to create some very cool integrations that go beyond Angular for NativeScript. In fact, the Vue.js integration now has matured quite a bit, and we're working directly with the community and in our internal teams to try to accelerate the support of Vue.js as an alternative framework you can use inside of NativeScript. And there's even early experimental work to integrate Preact and Aurelia and other frameworks so that you can use whichever framework, whichever library you like best when you develop with NativeScript. So we think this opens the doors to even more people using NativeScript and hopefully gives you more options for building the apps the way you prefer to build them. I'm pretty excited about the Vue support. So to talk a little bit about how SAP is using this and to see some of where NativeScript 3 and some of the improvements we made are happening in action, I want to invite to the stage now Randy Frederick from SAP, who's going to give us a little bit of an introduction to what SAP is doing and do a quick demo as well. So Randy, come on up here. Thanks for coming.
Good morning. As Todd mentioned, my name's Randy Frederick. I'm a SIEM client architect at SAP. So what is SIEM? SIEM is SAP's Enterprise Application Modeler. In the whole, it's a platform. And part of that platform is the SIEM client. And the SIEM client is a NativeScript implementation. So where did we come from? So SIEM came out of a couple of different products that we had at SAP. We had a agentry solution, which came from the Cyclo acquisition, but it was proprietary. So some of the pros that it had native performance, application customization, and it had some extension points, plus it ran on multiple platforms. Also, we had a Cordova implementation. It It was cross-platform. We had a lot of applications written on top of it. And it also used a common skill set, as Todd mentioned, as far as the web development skills. Some of the cons, but they both had their weaknesses. For instance, Agentry was lacking a native look and feel, and it required a proprietary skill set. And with Cordova, it was slower performing. So SEAM wanted to bring the best of both of those pieces together into one solution. We wanted native performance, we wanted customizations, we wanted extension points, we wanted a common skill set, and we wanted a native look and feel. In addition to that, we wanted to be able to create metadata-based applications, which means the application itself is the metadata, and SEAM is there just to facilitate its execution. In addition to that, so once we came up with our vision for SEAM, and we noticed the amount of requirements that we had, and we were already resource and time-based constrained. So we had to leverage a solution. And so we found with NativeScript that it already had a lot of the features that we needed to incorporate into SEAM, but we could leverage them. We didn't have to write them ourselves. So how SEAM integrates into NativeScript is using the NativeScript runtime for extension points, for performance. We also rely very heavily on the plugin framework, not only just for application customization and additional extension points, but also for native look and feel and an offline OData solution. We also leverage the JavaScript runtime for the common skill set. We wanted our developers that were developing the next generation of these applications to use skill sets and to expand beyond just our internal developers and to create the next generation of the applications. So this slide kind of highlights, or actually it focuses on where we are with SEAM and how the architecture of SEAM and how it plugs into NativeScript. We're using, behind a set of plugins, Fiori UI Kit, which is an internal SAP set of iOS controls, as well as an OData provider that is also behind another plugin. And inside of the NativeScript runtime, we have the SEAM client. And the SEAM client gets data in and out of the OData plugin, massages it, and sends it back up for display to the UI. The other thing I wanted to point out too is that we're making use of Webpack. So the application is written in an external tool, and then Webpack bundles that all up and pushes that out to the SEAM client for execution. So I would like to then give a brief demo of where we're at with SEAM and some of the controls that we've written. This is just a small sampling of what we've done so far. Whoop. You said I'll start. So what we have here is some pages that are executing navigations via metadata-based actions. And we're navigating different pages, and these pages are, so this is a modal example. We have additional UI examples that are drop-down banners up at the top. We have display dialog boxes that'll pop up next. We have toast message. Now these are all iOS or SAP iOS controls. These controls can be enabled via JavaScript, OData bindings, and also additional metadata components. So this is a form cell that we would use for in a typical transaction type of page where we would want to update the OData provided for this page. And from there, we have some additional controls that we can use to interact with the phone in terms of, I'm not quite there yet, so. And I'm going to stop right there because the demo is going on a little bit longer. But we are excited at SAP with NativeScript. We are ready to build the next generation of enterprise mobile applications.
Thanks, Randy. I mean, I think it's sometimes hard to appreciate in these quick times we get some of the cool stuff there, but a lot of that's being metadata-driven app development, so it's a pretty cool framework and the work they're doing. To learn more about that architecture and more about what SAP is doing with NativeScript, check out their blogs, blogs.sap.com, and look for the posts about Seam. Some very cool stuff out there, and again, thank you, Randy, for coming and showing us what SAP is doing. So in addition to focusing on developer experience and performance, and we went to NativeScript 3. There are two other areas where we thought we could do a lot better to help both the community and to help anybody looking at trying to get started with NativeScript. And that is specifically on that getting started experience and the plugins experience. How do you find and use good plugins? And for getting started, we recognize that it can be a bit of a challenge if you're just getting started with NativeScript or mobile app development in general. You've got to download and install the iOS SDKs, download and install the Android SDKs, NativeScript CLI, create a new NativeScript project, and then configure your emulators, your devices. If you're using iOS, maybe you've got to get some build certificates done, which are always a lot of fun. And then eventually, you get your app deployed. So in that first 5 minutes, that experience you have with NativeScript right now is really more like that first 5 hours if you have to go through all these steps and get everything set up before you can see any code happen. And we thought we could do better. We thought that we could do more to help people get to a first 5 minutes and understand what NativeScript could do for them. So I'm pleased to introduce today NativeScript Playground. NativeScript Playground is a place where you can now, in a browser, just jump to a URL and immediately begin experimenting and playing with NativeScript. And you'll see this run behind me as we go. Pick your framework, whether it's Angular, TypeScript, whatever it may be, and you get a QR code. And when you have the companion apps, which are available today in the app stores on your iOS or Android device, you simply scan that QR code. Then as you make changes in the browser to the code in your NativeScript app, it immediately updates inside of those companion apps. So you'll see I'll drag and drop a label on, save, label shows up. It's very cool stuff. So we'll change the text, we'll hit save, and just watch how fast that is. This is completely wireless. This is a browser in your apps. They're not connected, they're not tethered. It's an amazing experience. And it doesn't just stop at the UI. I can drag and drop buttons on, and I can actually change the JavaScript. And so I'll drop a button in, the app will refresh because we have to reload the JavaScript. But watch what happens when we hit the button. It's not just interaction. We actually capture the console logs. So you can do console log debugging directly from the playground via these companion apps. A very cool experience. And what I think is best of all, on top of all of this, see that button up at the top, that share button? You can create apps and easily share your apps with anybody by sending the URL that's generated there. So if you want to create a sample, create a tutorial, or even just ask for help with a problem, create it in the playground, share the URL, and anyone can quickly reload that and see what you've done with NativeScript. So we're really excited about this. NativeScript Playground, it's available today, play.nativescript.org. I encourage you to go there today, check it out, download the companion apps, and start spreading that around the community. And big congrats to the Playground team for all the work they did to pull this off and get it out there. In addition to the Playground, there are a lot of other resources we want to highlight that help you get started with NativeScript. The community is doing a lot of work to continually create things that help you ramp up, including this, the NativeScript book. If you're doing Angular development, NativeScript for Angular mobile development, written by Nathan Walker and Nathaniel Anderson. I think we're both here in the audience. I know 1 and 2 in the back. Available today on Packet. Great book, great resource. If you're doing Angular development, the authors are here. You can talk to them. Another book that's brand new, the NativeScript book, written by Mike and Nick Brostein, the Brosteins. And we have one of the authors here. This is a brand new book, and we're pleased to say we've been working with the Brosteins, and we are announcing that today this book will be available for free today on nativescript.org, nativescript.org/book. Over 450 pages, over 17 chapters of useful information to help you ramp up on NativeScript. So we hope you'll find that resource available. And again, available today for free on nativescript.org. Check it out. And if reading isn't your style, if you prefer more online learning, I also want to highlight Native Scripting, nativescripting.com, a great online tutorial. If you want to go learn NativeScript for more interactive tutorial style, check that out as well. There's some free courses as well as paid courses, so another great resource to get started with NativeScript. So that's getting started. Plugins. Plugins are a big part of what makes NativeScript go. There are now over 600 unique plugins just for NativeScript on NPM, and that's in addition to the thousands of other JavaScript plugins you can use easily out of the box for NativeScript as well. So these things help NativeScript become what it is, and you've made a lot of these plugins, and these are some of the top plugins for NativeScript right now. ThemeCore, Firebase integration by Eddie, Vue, we talked about Vue, increasingly popular for NativeScript, Google Maps, permissions. A lot of people here today are some of the top plugin authors for NativeScript, and again, thank you for helping us do that. One of the plugins that's available is by Progress, and that is, of course, NativeScript UI. And NativeScript UI is a wrapper around our native iOS and Android UI widgets, which gives you powerful UI options for your NativeScript iOS and Android apps. Things like the list view or the side drawer that has templating and all kinds of built-in features. And today, NativeScript UI is available in two versions. NativeScript UI Free, which has the side drawer and the list view, and then Pro, which really has more of those business widgets. Charts, gauges, the data form, calendar, autocomplete. And this is really good, but we really want NativeScript UI to help everyone build amazing apps and build them with no barriers. So I'm pleased to announce today that all of NativeScript UI is now free. So what was this is now this. You can use the charts, you can use the gauges, everything now is available on NPM. Use it in your app, build amazing demos, build cool things for business apps, whatever it is. We can't wait to see what you build using these widgets in your apps. And lastly with plugins, it can be a bit of a challenge if you're trying to figure out which plugin to use to answer some basic questions, like, does it work on iOS and Android? Does it work at all? Does it work with Angular if you're using the Angular framework? Will it work in the future? And of course, how in the world do I use it? Will I have documentation that will walk me through? These are very important questions because when you're sitting down to build an app, you don't want to waste time picking plugins that may lead you down the wrong path. And so to help the community organize this and bring some new ways of finding these plugins, we're introducing today a brand new NativeScript Marketplace. And the NativeScript Marketplace will do two things. It's going to help us pull together these high-quality resources, and we're also introducing the idea of verified plugins. And a verified plugin will allow plugin authors and NativeScript developers looking for plugins to find plugins that are definitely going to work on iOS and Android and work with Angular, because all of these things will be required to get that verified badge. So they'll be unit tested, they will support all the approaches to NativeScript. And so this will help you discover those high-quality plugins quickly. And for plugin authors, as you get your plugins verified, this will give your plugins extra visibility on the marketplace and help your plugins become even more popular. If you're interested in getting your plugin verified, you can go find the steps for verification at this short URL. It's a brand new resource on our docs today, bit.ly/verified-plugins, and you can learn how to go through the steps to get your plugin verified in the marketplace. Thank you. Now, there's a reason we called it Market and not plugins.nativescript.org, because this is just the start. We see plugins as being an important resource to bring together today, but we see in the future app templates, page templates, even complete themes for NativeScript apps showing up in the marketplace. So you have one place to go to find all these high-quality resources you may need to accelerate your NativeScript development. So check it out today, market.nativescript.org. It's live now, and you can go begin browsing those plugins, discovering all plugins, both verified and not verified, as you build your apps. So what's next? Where do we go from here? We've done a lot with NativeScript 3, and we've got a lot going on that's very exciting in the community. So what are we working on now? When we think about building a NativeScript app, we recognize that the front end is a big piece of the equation. That's what you're doing with NativeScript, building all that front end UI, building all that code, and there's a lot more we can do to make that even more productive for you as developers. But it's not the only step you have when you build an app. In order for most apps to work, there's some amount of back-end work that also has to happen. You've got to do both of these things to build a complete app. And we think we can do something on both of these ends of the spectrum to make your overall development experience faster. We want to bring to you, as NativeScript developers, maximum front-to-back productivity for mobile apps. And we think we've got the right resources at Progress to make that happen. So let's talk about the front end first. We talked a bit about the Chrome DevTools early on and what we've done there to light up all of the various tabs in Chrome DevTools, and that's very good. But for a lot of people, there's still a lot of manual hunt and find and XML files and weird things about iOS and Android development that can take time to figure out. And so to help solve that, we've introduced NativeScript Sidekick, new tooling dedicated to NativeScript that helps eliminate a lot of these hassles. Sidekick's available for Windows, Mac, and Linux, runs across all three, and gives you ways to quickly start new apps from a number of defined templates. And this list of templates will obviously continue to grow, and you'll be able to contribute to these templates in the future. It helps you discover plugins directly from the plugin marketplace, verified plugins, pull them into your application, and then manage those plugins, upgrade them, and update them as you need to. It'll help you manage your app assets, those common configuration challenges. If you don't want to dive into info.plist, here's going to be a visual UI to help you manage all those settings. And critically, it also helps you build locally and in the cloud, which means that, yes, you can build for iOS directly from a Windows machine if you don't have an iOS machine handy. So it's a very cool and powerful feature built directly into Sidekick. So very powerful tooling, and it's not a replacement for your IDE or your code editor. As the name implies, it's a sidekick. It works alongside of the editors and the code, the IDEs that you already use and love today. But we will be building plugins, direct integrations for both Visual Studio Code and Visual Studio on Windows. And I don't have a demo for you today, but the Visual Studio integration is amazing. If you do anything with Visual Studio, it feels completely native to the Visual Studio process. And again, you hit that build button that iOS builds in the cloud, and you're off to the races. Preview 2 for NativeScript Sidekick is available today. I encourage you to go download it and refresh it. If you've not yet checked out Preview 1, now is a great time to begin using Sidekick. The new preview includes extra help getting those iOS provisioning and build certificates set up, which is always a pain, so some helpful features there, improved live sync debugging, and the official release is still slated to come out this October, so just around the corner. So that's Sidekick. So that's the front end. Sidekick's going to be a great tool. We're going to continue enhancing that. We think it's going to make you even more productive as you build with NativeScript apps. But then there's the back end. And when we talk about the back end of building an app, we often talk about the data first, because that's an important part of it. But there are a lot of different tasks that it takes to build the back end of an app. Authentication, user management, push notifications, all of these are things that take time and that you have to go figure out how to do and wire up. And as an open source project, NativeScript clearly embraces a wide range of ways that you can get this done. Through plugins, like we saw the Firebase plugin, one of the most popular for NativeScript right now, to even just writing your own custom REST and OData endpoints for these various capabilities. NativeScript wants to make it easy to do it with anything you need to build your application. But as part of Progress, we also have the ability to do some things for those of you who just want more of an out-of-the-box integrated experience in a slightly better way. And earlier this year, Progress acquired the leading mobile backend as a service provider called Kinvey, who I hope a few of you have heard of. And with NativeScript and Kinvey in the same box at Progress, we believe we can go even further to give you that front-to-back productivity for enterprise mobile projects in particular. So to talk a little bit about Kinvey and what its capabilities are and why I think it's a very compelling option for you as NativeScript developers and how we're going to begin to tie these things together, I want to invite to the stage Kinvey founder Shravesh, who's going to come up here and give you a little bit of an overview of Kinvey and what's going on there. So Shravesh, come on up.
Thank you, Todd. Good morning. My name is Shravesh Sridhar, and I founded Kinvey 6 years ago. Over the last 3 months after Progress acquired us, I sat down with Todd and the rest of the NativeScript team, and I asked a simple question. What do we want to do? What do we want to enable for the NativeScript community? And the answer came down to, we want to give all of you superpowers. And everybody said, what the hell does that mean? They said, we want to help people build apps that make people feel special. Help you buy and sell things, help you communicate with friends all over the world, enterprises giving their customers access to systems, and in some cases, sitting at home and a voice via Alexa or Google Hub or whatever telling you, go to school and pick up your kids. I get that a lot at home, not from my wife, but from my Alexa. But what we found out was NativeScript, like Todd mentioned, is one part of the puzzle. NativeScript helps you build phenomenal front-end experiences. But to give the app superpowers, to take a delightful experience and give it a whole lot of features, you have to have a back end. But then as developers, when you start thinking about the back end, you have to start installing virtual machines or start installing or configure services in the cloud. You have to maintain them, you have to design them, you have to code them and make sure they're always working end to end. And then what people start to forget is code is not perfect, so you have to troubleshoot it. You have to secure it, you have to scale it. And then if it's an enterprise use case, you have to start to think about things like end user support. So what if your end user calls you and says, my app's not working? How do you make it work? And then here's the worst part as front-end developers. You have to start thinking about how do you integrate your application with protocols from various backend systems, SAP, SharePoint, ADFS, Active Directory. And as a front-end developer, I don't want to learn how to use all these different services. This is when projects delay and people get frustrated. So what we tried to do was solve a very simple problem for front-end engineers, that building and operating backends suck. So think of Kinvey as the phone booth in the cloud that takes a beautiful, delightful experience and gives it superpowers. So here's how we're doing it. And the better part is when you're going to see it live in a demo in a few minutes. But what we do is we want you to sit inside your NativeScript experience. So you have a Kinvey SDK, and the SDK takes care of all of the things that sit under your user interface. Things like how do you make data available offline? How do you sync millions of records from your app to a backend and vice versa? How do you manage tokens? And these tokens can come from different authentication services. Or how do you track app usage to do things like end user support or security or compliance? We want to give you all these features via an SDK so that you don't have to worry about it. And in the back end, this SDK ties to a set of data features, a data store, a file store, connectivity to different data services, a set of auth features so that you can log in a user, log out a user, forget password, all of the various identity services that you have to enable for your app. And here's the key part. As a NativeScript developer, you don't have to worry about different authentication protocols or different data protocols. You're making NativeScript functions to do all of the work. Once you do that, then now you have a backend system for serverless functions that you write in Node.js to do things like custom APIs and triggers. And you also tie that into engagement services, push, SMS, email, and a live service for real-time applications. So for playing a multiplayer game, you have live service built in. And once you have all these features, compliance, security, and end user support is built in. So it's not an afterthought for your enterprise applications or for your startup applications. This is all built in. And so over the last 6 years, we've built a platform that Forrester has recognized to be the #1 mobile development platform in the world. And recently, in the health space, we're called the #1 enterprise health cloud in the world. Let me give you a few examples to make all this real, and then we'll get into the demo. So Farmers Insurance uses Kinvey for all their consumer use cases, and recently they also launched an Alexa skill. So a single backend platform to build web apps, mobile apps, and voice-based assistants. Sanofi uses us for games. This is an example of a game for kids that is HIPAA compliant, where they use gamification to teach kids with type 1 diabetes about the disease. There's a large construction company in Atlanta called Holder that uses Kinvey to manage all on-site projects. This is an extremely hard application to build because the offline use cases are amazing, because you have people syncing data that have gigabytes of information, building plans, project plans, things like that, and managing it on a daily basis, all done via an iPad. We also have a ton of startups using Kinvey. This is an example of a venture-backed startup called Glam Squad that has built the Uber for beauty. So when I was trying to get ready to come here, I could open up an app, hypothetically, and ask a beautician to come to my airport, to my hotel, and do my hair. Temtrack is a health startup that has built their entire business on Kinvey. They've built a patch that goes on kids, and this can be used to monitor the temperature of children, whether they're in a hospital or you're taking care of them at home. So one of my favorites is a company called Hello Tractor, which has got an IoT device that sits on a tractor and a mobile phone that allows farmers in sub-Saharan Africa to ask for a tractor to come to their farm and till their soil. Right? This is solving a serious problem of food security in Africa, which is really cool, in my opinion. When I started Kinvey, I would have never thought that marijuana technology would be built on our platform, but the Yelp for marijuana, along with HIPAA-compliant patient verification, is built on Kinvey too. So I could go on and on and on, but the punchline is almost any use case you can think of can be built using the combination of NativeScript and Kinvey, and we're really excited to show you how to do this. And one of the things that you'll see as you discover the platform is this is a technology built for developers by developers. All of us at Kinvey write code, with the exception of the marketing people, but they'll tell you that they also write code for our websites. We have 4 product tenets. The first thing is we really look at things that are a pain in the you-know-what, and we make it easy, right? Managing multiple SDKs, doing things like logging in a user. So the redundant tasks that you don't want to do again and again, we try to make it simple. Number 2, the things that are really hard, we want to make them easy. How do you sync millions of records? How do you ensure compliance for an application? How do you ensure data is secure? We want to make that easy. Number 3, things like scale, security, and end user support should never be an afterthought. It should be built into the application architecture. And number 4, do all this via an open platform where all the building blocks are open source, and you can do this in JavaScript, and it runs on any cloud. So you as a startup or as an enterprise are not beholden to Amazon or Google or Azure, and you have the ability to run your application on a cloud of your choice. So let's do the interesting part. I'd like to invite TJ and Tejas to walk you through how all this comes to life and do a demo. Thank you very much.
Hey everyone. Is this mic working? Oh yeah, there we go. So today we want you to use your imagination a little bit. So you're gonna have to pretend with us for a little bit. I want you to pretend that Tejas and I here are the lead front-end and back-end developers for a big organization. So we're pretty important people. We oversee hundreds, thousands, lots of people, right? We're very important. We work for this company. You might have heard of us. We're called Naditas. We've got a pretty big product line out there, and we've really been tasked as the rockstar developers at Naditas with building a mobile app that brings these products to our customers. And so we've also been given some more specific requirements. We've been told, hey, this app, we got to get it up and running quickly. The app's got to look good. It's got to have a modern UI. We've got to connect all that existing product data that we have out there. And we've also been told we've got to personalize these apps for each individual user, for their own experience. So what we're going to do, we're going to try to take all the things that you've heard of from today, from Todd and such, and show how you can put those to action in sort of a practical example. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. Now from Naditas, we might want to start out in NativeScript Sidekick. NativeScript Sidekick helps us meet that first requirement of getting our apps up and running quickly. For example, I have some different application templates for really common app scenarios. So if I wanted to start my app from a drawer, or a tab navigation, or master detail, or use different architectures, I'm just a click away from getting started. Now our product data, it's really master detail oriented, so I'd probably pick one of these templates. You might have noticed that we already have an app pre-scaffolded. As the front-end engineer, I know it's good for job security not to run an npm install live for you on stage today. So we're actually just going to go right into the app. Hey, look at that. We got our app pre-scaffolded up and running. So here you can see some of the metadata. Todd showed some slides for here earlier, asset management, all the other things that are available. Within the plugins list here, you can use plugins from the new NativeScript Plugins Marketplace, including some of the verified plugins that we talked about. But the real fun comes from this run menu on the top of the screen. So Sidekick lets you build your apps for both Android and iOS. This is something that the NativeScript CLI does as well. But of course, the cool thing is you can also build your apps from the cloud. Now for us at Naditas, this is pretty important. We've got a lot of developers on Windows, other devices. Our Windows developers, we want them to be able to build iOS applications along with the rest of our team. So Sidekick enables to do that. It also takes away some of the potentially messy system requirements that can come with managing a full team of people that need to have the right version of CocoaPods and Android SDKs and all these other various things that you need to have to build a modern mobile app. So I'm going to do this. I'm switching over to a menu that lets me just run directly on a device. If you do have the sort of system requirements that I talked about already in place, you don't have to do cloud builds with Sidekick, so you have some flexibility. So I'm going to kick off a local build. I've got my iOS simulator and Android virtual device here hanging out behind here. Now, one nice thing is Sidekick is not doing anything special to my application. It's not so, let's just say, like changing file or folder structure or anything like that, which means that across Naditas, people that are more familiar with working with the NativeScript CLI can just continue to do that. They can use the workflow they've been using. But people that are more comfortable with some visual tooling can work in Sidekick. And you can also go back and forth and do that sort of thing as well. So our Naditas app is starting to come up. You can see that we've customized the master detail template a little bit. You also see that we're using a lot of the newly free NativeScript UI components. So our product data here is in a rad list view. We've got a rad side drawer over here for a little bit of navigation. The checkout experience is driven by the rad data form, also part of NativeScript UI. And I've got some chart data in here as well used to show reviews. Now I'm almost done with the front end part of this. I'm almost ready to turn it over to the back end. But as the front end person, I'm working with the Naditas design team, and they say, TJ, this app looks great, but these vertical bars, they're so last year, right? Like the design world has moved on. They're on to horizontal bars. That's just the way it is. And who am I to question great, really thought out design research like that? So I'm going to go ahead and make that change. And I've got my editor up here. Now I can use any editor along with NativeScript Sidekick. I'm not restricted to anything in particular. I happen to like VS Code. Don't worry about the APIs specifically of what I'm changing. I'm just going to flip those accesses, whatever the plural is, to my designer's request. What I do want you to notice is just how fast Sidekick picks up and deploys that change to these devices. So now, if I go in and scroll down, you can see my designers are now super happy that I have horizontal bars in this application. Now, of course, I just have two little simulators up here. This is pretty simple, but man, back at Naditas HQ, how many devices do we have hooked up to this thing? I mean, we've got iPads and Android devices of various shapes and sizes, which is great for our production app testing, right? If we need to support all these devices, being able to hook all of these up and test all of these things simultaneously can really help with our productivity. So overall, NativeScript, or Naditas, the front-end team, I'm pretty sold, right? I got some cool stuff. I'm in Sidekick. There's also some stuff I didn't show you, like I could totally just launch the Chrome Dev Tools from this button here if I wanted to start debugging this app. So between the templates, between all of this tooling, between how easy, the flexibility I get from building, I'm good. But as we all know, front end is only half of the equation when it comes to app building. If I could do it all, I would, but unfortunately, I do at some point have to turn it over to the back end. So Tejas, why don't you take it over to talk about how we can integrate Kinvey into this application?
Awesome. Cool, so it looks like part one of the requirements we set out to solve is coming along pretty well. We have a modern looking UI ready to go. Let's now focus on parts 2 and 3. So we said two things. We said we want to connect this to an existing product catalog, and we want to personalize it for different users. So let's start by talking about where data for this app is coming from right now. When TJ started, he created a backend on Kinvey, and we are looking at it right now. As you would expect, all the standard things like users, file stores, data, push notifications, all of this is ready and spun up for you to use as soon as you create a Kinvey backend. In TJ's case, it looks like he's created 2 data collections for products and a shopping cart. Let's open up one of them, products. And when TJ started building out his UI, he put some sample data in here, which is what we're seeing in the app. Now, Kinvey provides a NoSQL Mongo-based data store, so as soon as you spin up your backend, you can just start adding JSON data or importing data and building your UI. But what we said was we really would like to connect this to an existing product catalog. Now at Naditas, our product catalog resides in Salesforce. So now let's look at how Kinvey would allow us to connect this product collection to our Salesforce product catalog. If you go into settings, we see 2 options: to either use the Kinvey data store, as we are doing right now, or to use a data service. And with the data service, Kinway allows us to connect to a whole host of third-party services. Salesforce is just one of them. What I did before we started was I created a connector to Salesforce, which we can open up and take a look at. All it is a set of configuration parameters that tells Kinway where my Salesforce instance is, what my authentication to Salesforce looks like, and that's it. I didn't write any code, it's all configuration based. And now with this, we can now switch our product collection to pull data from this Salesforce object that I created. So if you open up the, yep.
Good old
Let's
live resolution.
With that, we've flipped it to use Salesforce, and let's refresh our UI. So let's pull to refresh. And just like that, our app is now pulling data from Salesforce. What's really cool about this is TJ didn't have to know about Salesforce. He didn't have to learn how Salesforce protocols and data formats look like. In fact, he didn't have to change his app at all. Behind the scenes, we were able to switch it. And this is what Shravish calls superpowers, because as a front-end developer, I can just focus on my app experience, and we believe that this really accelerates how front-end and back-end teams work together. So looks like we have our real product data coming from Salesforce. Let's now switch it back to development mode and talk about another really important data aspect of mobile apps, which is to have offline experiences and be able to do caching on the device. So let's switch over to our app. Now on the front end, Kinway's NativeScript plugin provides you with APIs and abstractions to talk to all of these backend features that I described. In particular, looks like for our shopping cart, TJ is using a data store, which is basically the front-end abstraction for data. On the data store, you'll see something interesting, which is he's selected a type called sync. What this is telling the Kinway plugin is, I'd like to maintain a copy of this data for offline usage, and I want to be able to call a sync function on this, which will automatically sync all of my offline and online data when I have network. So let's see this in action. So we're going to put the phone in airplane mode. And let's take some actions in the phone. So maybe we can add some things to the cart. Yeah, that sounds good. So while this is happening, we are completely offline. There's no data in the backend, and we can go back and verify that on our Kinway console. All the heavy lifting of keeping track of this offline data, synchronizing this when we go back online, all of it is handled by the SDK. So let's go back and switch back into online mode. And at this point, we should detect that network is back and call the sync API. And all right, looks like it was pretty quick. So this is a simple example, but like Shravish said, millions of records can be synced using the same principle, and we've done all the hard work to make this really easy for you to use. All right, cool. So with that, we have data flowing through the app as we would like from an existing product catalog. Let's focus on the last thing we said, which was we want to personalize this app for different users. So to do that, I'm going to use Kinway's Flex services. Now, Flex services are basically Node.js microservices. I can write them in JavaScript and deploy them to run on Kinway. I don't have to think about the ops or infrastructure or managing the servers. It just runs in the cloud. So I've written a simple microservice. All right, there's my code. So that's the extent of it. This is pretty simple. All I'm doing is seeing who the current user is and sorting the product catalog based on the stated preference of the current user. Pretty straightforward. What I can do with this service is have it deploy on Kinway with a single command line command called Kinway deploy. And at that point, it's going to spin up a container job and have it running on Kinway. Again, I'm not worried about the infrastructure or the servers on this. It just told me that it received a job, and that's it. What I have this service doing is every time I fetch products, it's going to run this snippet of code that I wrote to take the current user's preferences and sort those products. Let's see it in action.
Yes, I put in charge of building an actual UI to show this, and I put my great front-end prowess to work here, and I came up with this amazing thing where currently I'm logged in. We created an account for my colleague Jen Looper. Does everybody know Jen here? Jen's in the back. So Jen, you might not know this, Jen is a big Adidas shopper. She might have a little bit of a problem, but we wanted to customize the experience for Jen. So we made it so if you click this, we wanted to show some products specifically tailored to Jen's taste.
So looks like Jen likes women's apparel and cats. Cool. So again, the Flex service I wrote is a very simple example, but the same concept can be used to do highly orchestrated experiences with a lot of different complex things that you can pull in. And you can write custom auth integrations and data integrations with it as well. All right, so we set out to do 3 things, and looks like our app is coming along pretty well. We have an existing product catalog, we have a good-looking UI, and we have personalization. So we should be ready to push this into production. But of course, TJ wanted to show you one last thing that he's been working on. So
yeah, so we have the Nazitas, their front-end team. You know, they're in the audience here. They're taking copious notes during Todd's presentation. They're really great people, and they got a new feature that they really wanted to show. We got it working pretty quickly. So to do that, I've got my iPad here that I am going to hook up. Now I will point out while I'm awkwardly plugging this in that yes, this is a custom NativeScript etched iPad. So I'm just going to let the jealousy sort of sit in the room. So let that take up this awkward moment while I am getting this up here. And you're going to see me for just a second. Hello. And then, if the demo gods are with me, you will see my iPad. Yes. So what I've got is a custom build of Naditas. It's the same exact thing we saw with the NativeScript augmented reality plugin added in. So you'll see this is the same app, but you'll notice there's one new product up top. We've got a Jumbo Stress Cube, one of our most popular items. They really fly off the shelves. But our support team say, you know, we get a lot of complaints. People call in, they want to know how big is the Jumbo Stress Cube, right? Like, pretty common thing. Now, we could just add dimensions or more screenshots, something like that. But we're engineers. We can come up with better solutions than that. So what we did is we added this Preview in Reality button, which is going to use the NativeScript AR plugin. So the way this plugin works, it's actually a wrapper of ARKit, and the reason I put my backpack down is because ARKit has to detect a plane, and sometimes it doesn't do that. It actually did it pretty fast here. Once it detects this plane, which is represented by these Tron-like squares, you have the ability to drop things in. And this, I asked Todd for 2 hours during this keynote to actually play with this live on stage, and he declined that offer. But this is a whole lot of fun, and I encourage you, I'll be around for the entire event if you want to see this in action. It's one of those things that's more impressive to just hold in your hands to try out. But the bigger vision, as I sort of turn this off, is what NativeScript enables you to do here, right? So to sort of wrap things up, between doing some of the more mundane things like getting your apps up and running quickly, tying into data, doing some really powerful things like data. Another reason we use NativeScript is to do these sort of experimental latest and greatest things, being able to tap into the latest and greatest iOS and Android can offer. You can see how seamless that integrated into that application. So at Adidas, we're sold, right? NativeScript is for us. We hope you find it as compelling. And with that, I'm going to turn things back over to Todd.
Thanks, guys. Very cool demos. Again, ARKit, AR Core, pretty excited about what you'll be able to do with that. And hopefully you can see this is just the beginning, that progress with NativeScript and Kinvate, our ability to bring these things together to help you have that maximum front-to-back productivity, particularly when you're building those mission-critical apps, is something we think we're going to be particularly well-positioned to help you do, in addition to all the other great things we're integrated with. Now, over the last hour, we've looked at a lot of things. We've gone kind of quick. So I want to remind you that you need to go check these things out today. There's a lot of great new resources that are just being made available today. NativeScript Playground, of course. We really hope you check that out, play.nativescript.org. The new marketplace, both as plugin consumers and plugin authors. Go get those plugins verified. Discover the new marketplace at market.nativescript.org. NativeScript UI, all free. Don't put any barrier between you and using all the great widgets that we make available there. Use the charts, use the gauges, data form. Take advantage of all that we have to offer in NativeScript UI. And of course, Sidekick. We think it's a great companion to NativeScript development, particularly if you're trying to build on Windows or you want to eliminate some of the setup steps that can go into managing iOS and Android SDKs. Powerful tooling, powerful resources, all designed to help you more productive get started faster, and make the most out of what NativeScript can be for you as mobile developers. Now, over the next 2 days, the rest of today and into tomorrow, I want to encourage you to take advantage of all the time that you can here. Engage with the speakers. We have over 18 speakers, many of whom are NativeScript plugin authors or book authors or in some way deeply involved with the community. So take advantage of their time, interact with them. Also, take advantage of the NativeScript core team. We have a lot of people here today from the engineering team, the DevRel team, flying in from Bulgaria, from around the country. In fact, if you're on the NativeScript team and you're in the room here now, can you stand up just quickly so we can make you awkwardly identify yourself? There we go. So look for those faces. Certainly not all the team. But if you want to take advantage of having engineering and having PM and all the various roles here, they are here for you. So that's part of the advantage of being here at NativeScript Developer Day today. And of course, help us make NativeScript better. This is an open source project, and it's something that's very important to us to make sure the community is central to how we guide the future and how we continue to find ways to make NativeScript better. So engage with us, give us the feedback, get involved. We'd love to have you more deeply involved in the project, so that NativeScript, when we get together next time, has more great slides and fun things that we're doing for NativeScript. Otherwise, thank you again for coming to Developer Day 2017. Enjoy the rest of the conference, and we'll see you here next year. Thank you. Now, I've been asking you two logistics, track A and track B. Today, there are 2 rooms. So there's this room, which will have some sessions, and there is a track B, which is on the 2nd floor. So up past the floor you came in and up the stairs, that's the other room. Check the agenda on the NativeScript Developer Day website to see which sessions are happening where, but you have a choice today to go to either of those 2 tracks. You can go back and forth and just based on the content you want to consume. And then immediately following the last session today, there will be a social hour with free drinks and such on the 2nd floor. So up where track B is going to be. I hope you'll stick around for that. It'll be a great time to network and have some extra engaging time with everyone who's here today. And then tomorrow, single track, I believe in this room. So 1 track tomorrow. Thanks again. Enjoy the rest of the sessions.